Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown. Thanks so much for joining us. Over the past few days, I've been introducing you to presenters at the Caring Conference, which happens on March 25th. And I'm honored to introduce you to Jessica Sima, who's also one of our presenters. Hi, Jessica, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Denise. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm looking forward to your presentation because you're going to talk about burnout. So you are someone that has multiple roles in your life. You have a small business, you have a full-time job. I mean, when I start to list all this stuff, okay, and then you also help your mom and your brother. You also are raising two kids, and you also try to have a life outside of those roles. So your presentation is about how you overcame burnout. And when I list all the roles you have, no wonder you felt burnt out. And I wondered, what was the lowest moment for you during your burnout?
Well, that's an interesting question, Denise, because as I was taking a look at this presentation and burnout, I've realized I've had many different burnout periods of time in my life. I've been a very long-term caregiver, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. And I realized that there has been many that I have been burnt out over the years. Most recently, I was burnt out when my mom ended up acquiring COVID, as well as my younger brother at the same time. So that was my most recent episode.
And that was almost 2 years ago, if I
Right.
remember. So it was at the beginning of the pandemic where we
Yeah.
had very little good information, no access to PPE, and you were trying to manage transitions between settings, so hospital to a rehab center for your mom, and then also manage your brother who lives in a residential facility which had a terrible outbreak. How in the world did you even sleep when you were managing all that?
Well, first of all, I'm impressed that you remember those details, Denise, because I don't necessarily, like when you look back after something, your details are a little fuzzy. But it's like every caregiver in every situation. I think the way I manage things is probably have a good 24 hours of freak out, if not longer, and then I go into you go into crisis mode, for lack of a better term, and do what you have to do and to get through the time that you're in, right? To be able to do all your duties, perform what you have to do. You do the best that you can. And then it's on the other side almost when you're coming off of it, or as things linger on, where you start to see the signs of burnout.
I should also mention too that your grandmother had died. Really, I
Yeah.
think it would have been maybe 8 months before the pandemic started. And so she was a significant person in your life. So not only were you still managing a caregiving role times two, you were grieving. And then these tremendous change with the pandemic. So work for you changed, caregiving for you changed so much. So your workshop really helps us to understand that we can heal from burnout, that we don't have to stay in this perpetual state of burnout. I don't want you to give everything away, but I would just love for you to share something that you do differently now than you did before, let's say, March 2020.
Yeah, I think one, and there's 5 different things that I really focus on, and it's not your classic. Of course, I do the classic, burnout things that are recommended. But one of the things that has really made a difference and seems simple, but it's not if you don't practice, is really asking myself different quality questions, different questions about my experience and what I'm doing, and committing to continuing to be a caregiver. So once I recommit and ask myself if this is something that I really want to continue to do, or that I can physically continue to do, because of course of physical breakdown of my own body, and I'll share that as well during the presentation, but really learning to ask myself quality questions and find space to get those answers.
I have found it transformative to ask myself questions. I had a really difficult situation in 2020 where I was harassed to the point where someone really wanted to drive me out of business. It was a very odd situation. And so I would take a walk and ask myself this question when I would take a walk, which is, in what wonderful, lucrative, amazing way will this situation work out for me? I mean, which sounds like, how is that going to work out for you? It was this huge company that really was putting a lot of money behind this law firm. I had my lawyer who was amazing, but it was her and me. But ultimately, it worked out in an amazing, lucrative, wonderful way. So I feel like the questions that we ask ourselves turns us from this position of, oh, I have no choice. I'm painted in a corner. Life is terrible. Why bother? Into, okay, what's possible even during this really difficult situation? So I'm wondering, what are the questions that you ask yourself?
Well, and I mean, I totally agree, Denise. I think when you ask these questions, it's just a way of giving yourself some power back. Because, and I wish I could find a different term for a victim, right? Like we have this victim mentality. I wish there was a different word because I don't like that word. But as caregivers, we're sometimes thrust into this and we feel like we didn't have a decision to become a caregiver. And, how could we possibly have any kind of control when our days are being ultimately managed for us? But, asking these questions really gives you a sense of, oh, maybe I can start thinking a little differently and answering this question to see where things can be a little different. And you start to gain a little bit more power back. And I think one of the questions that has really helped me the most is, how can I take myself out of the center of the story? Because so much of it was always focused around me and how can I do this? And how could my mom have let herself, get so sick? And, all of those questions that of course are natural for people. I mean, we're all human, right? We're going to think those things. But if I took myself out of the center of the story and I thought about her and her experience and what she's going through, I just show up differently. I show up more compassionate, more patient, and I think more loving, which is ultimately the goal, right? I mean, if we're caregivers, I think for the most part, that's how we want to show up. I am not perfect. I don't do it perfectly. I still occasionally yell and all those things, but really just being able to find the white space and ask myself that question and let the answers come up for me have really supported me in all different areas, family, caregiving, work, all of those things, and really has softened the edges a bit of caregiving, I think.
So something that you're helping me understand about these transformative questions is that they take us out of a story that we decide has a particular ending, which is, I can't do this, life is unfair for me, and I agree with you, there's got to be a different word for victim, but where we feel hopeless. So oftentimes we get stuck in this story and we decide the ending has no hope.
Right.
And when we ask the right question, we open up and see the story is still unfolding. And in many ways, we can write the story in a way that we keep hope, which is what you just talked about in terms of how you show up in caregiving. So the story is still yet to be written, and you are the author of the story, not the circumstances writing the story.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's a perfect way of saying it, right? We're no longer being pulled around because of the circumstances. The circumstances are what they are. And we're caregivers and it's hard, but now what? How can we support ourselves and to continue to, write our own story and really do what we can to support ourselves as we continue to do it every day, day in and day out.
And it's about giving ourselves a chance. So what's the chance that you've given yourself recently that you think, oh, what a gift?
Well, as far as I think one thing that I've learned to try to change my thoughts around is I always think, productivity, I have to do more. But what I found is if I give myself a chance just to slow down and really be quiet once in a while, I've given myself a chance to see that I can actually speed things up. When I'm running around like my hair is on fire, and going from thing to thing, which of course inevitably happens, if I need to slow, if I'm feeling that anxiety and I need to slow down, just giving myself a chance literally to breathe quietly, however you want to do it, for 5 minutes and slow my brain down will actually allow me to move a little faster, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I think we get stuck in that panic. I have to do all of this right now at once, and I have to finish it in the next 5 minutes all at once. And if we take that step back, we realize we have time. We can be deliberate in terms of how we structure our priorities, and everybody will be okay, especially ourselves.
Right. Right. Just make it through, right? Somehow.
So when you think about what you want next for yourself in your life, what's next?
I think that what's next for me is just enjoying what I've built so far, where I'm at right now, right? And really, like I said, slowing down and being able to appreciate where my kids are at, being able to appreciate where my mom and my brother are at in their lives right now, even though it can be crazy, and just appreciating the fact that I've maintained, a small business and my work, and to be able to really show up now, really answering those questions and following through and being able to show up as my best self, right? In all aspects of my life.
And I think that's what we hope for ourselves, is that we bring our best into every situation, every relationship, every challenge.
Yeah. And I never used to feel like I could do that, right? I never used to feel like I could actually show up as my best self because I was a victim of my circumstances, or I felt hopeless because of my circumstances. And now I really feel like, because of my circumstances, and I've learned to answer those higher quality questions, that I can still show up as my best self, even though it might be a little messy.
Yes, I agree with that. Sometimes I think when I go to doctor's appointments with my parents, they look really put together, and I mean, I look like, yeah, anyway, I don't even know how to describe what I look like, but
That's so true. I recently thought about this. I'm like, well, I made sure that my mom had a quality, high nutritious lunch, and my daughter had a beautiful breakfast, and everybody got their water, and they look great. And then yes, there I am, like drinking another cup of coffee and having something from the pantry that isn't healthy for sure. So yeah.
I always feel like it's my hair that gives me away, that like it just has a mind of its own, and just, anyway. Okay, Jessica, this is awesome. I'm so looking forward to your presentation on March 25th as
Yes.
part of the Caring Conference. And for our listeners and viewers who would like to be in touch with you, what's your website address?
It's everydaynurse1 at gmail.com. That's my Gmail address. But my website address is The Everyday Nurse.
Okay, theeverydaynurse.com.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Jessica. Looking forward to seeing you on March 25th.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thanks everybody so much for watching and listening. Go to caringourway.com to join our group for our conference. You can register to join as many of the workshops as you'd like throughout the whole day of March 25th. And if you're a certified dementia practitioner, a certified senior advisor, or a nurse in all 50 states, you can earn CEUs. You can earn as many as 7 CEUs for a flat fee of $20. And if you're healthcare professionals in Illinois, you also can earn CEUs. Otherwise, the conference is free. It's virtual and free. Okay, we'll see you on March 25th. Go to caringourway.com for more information. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.